Rain had been coming down in sheets all night, hammering the tin roof of Samuel Walker's ranch house like it had a personal grudge. The wind howled through the wide Texas plains, cutting into the landscape with icy fury, and even the cattle. Huddled beneath the tree line, silent and still. Sam had gotten up before dawn, same as always, to check the fences. The storm had knocked one section clean over, and he was out fixing it when he noticed the shed door half open, swaying in. The wind. That was odd. He always kept it shut, locked even. He trudged through the muddy ground, boots heavy with soaked earth, brow furrowed under his old felt hat. The shed was where he stored equipment spools of barbed wire, hay bales, tools, spare, parts for the tractor, nothing anyone would bother stealing. Still, something about that door. As he reached the threshold, the door creaked wider with the breeze. He paused. Inside it was dark. He sniffed the air hay oil and something else, something human. Then he heard it, a sharp intake of breath, quiet but unmistakable. His hand instinctively went to the hunting knife at his belt. "Hello?" he called out, voice low but firm. No answer. He stepped inside, letting the light from his flashlight cut through the shadows. And then he saw her. She was slumped in the far corner, half hidden behind stacked bales, curled protectively around. Something. A girl no more than 18 or 19, face streaked with mud and dried blood, her wrists raw where a coarse rope had dug into her skin. Her clothes were torn, soaked. Her eyes were wide with terror as she stared up at him. And in her trembling arms, she held a baby, maybe a month old, wrapped in a torn denim jacket. The child was quiet, but breathing. Sam's flashlight hit the baby's face, and he froze. Eyes. Those eyes. Storm gray. Exactly like his own. "What the hell?" Sam murmured, stepping forward slowly, cautiously. The girl flinched, pressing herself tighter into the corner. "Please," she rasped. "Don't hurt him, please. Just let him live." "I'm not going to hurt you," Sam said quickly, setting the flashlight down and raising his hands. "I swear, you're safe here." "But who are you? Why are you here? That baby—" Tears rolled down her face as she whispered, "He's yours." Sam's world tilted. The shed, the storm, the broken fence, all of it disappeared. There was only this girl and the baby in her arms, looking at him with his own eyes. That couldn't be. It didn't make sense. He was single. He hadn't been with anyone in years. And this girl, he didn't recognize her. Yet there was something familiar about her face. "Start from the beginning," he said, voice steady, despite the chaos in his mind. "I can't. They're looking for me. If they find me, if they find him, they'll kill us both." She coughed, violently. Her lips were cracked. She looked half-dashed starved. Sam reached for the water jug he kept in the shed and gently passed it to her. She hesitated, then drank in greedy gulps, trying not to spill a drop on the child. "They said I'd disappear," she whispered, like the others. "I didn't believe them. Not at first, I thought. I thought maybe he'd protect me," he said. "You were dangerous, that you'd come for me one day, but you never did." "I don't even know who you are," Sam said softly. "My name's Aaron. Aaron Blake. I worked at Hollow Creek Stables last year." You used to ride up there sometimes?" Sam blinked. He did remember someone at the stables. Quiet girl, brown hair, quick hands, always kept her head down. "I never. Aaron, I swear to you, I never touched you. I don't know how. No," she said. "It wasn't you. It was your brother." Silence fell like a hammer between them. Samuel's heart clenched. "No," he said hoarsely. "Jake's been dead for 2 years." Aaron's lip trembled. "You only think he's dead?" And that was the moment everything changed. It was hours later before she was warm, clean, and able to speak properly. Sam had brought her into the house, wrapped her and the baby in blankets, and made soup. All while trying to process what he was hearing. According to Aaron, she'd been trafficked. Groomed by a man using a false name, Jace, who had connections across several states. The baby was born after months in hiding, but then Jace had vanished, and Aaron had managed to escape one night during a stopover near the Walker ranch. She had recognized the ranch sign in the dark, remembered Sam's quiet kindness at the stables. crawled into his shed, her last hope. Sam had never felt rage like he did listening to her story. And shame. Deep, gnawing shame that someone with his blood had done this. Jake had always been the wild one, the charming liar, the gambler, the risk-taker. But trafficking? A child? "I'll call the sheriff," Sam said, standing no. Aaron said sharply, "You don't understand. The sheriff's his cousin." Sam's fists clenched. "Then we'll go further, Amarillo, Dallas, FBI, if we have to." She looked exhausted, but nodded. And then the baby cooed. It was the first sound he'd made all day. Sam turned toward him slowly. He looked so small. His tiny fist curled around Sam's finger with surprising strength. That same gray stare locked with his, and Sam felt something break open in his chest. "What's his name?" he asked. "Caleb." Sam swallowed hard. He'd never wanted kids. Never thought himself fit to raise one. But holding Caleb, something inside him clicked. He couldn't explain it. He just knew whatever came next. This child was his now, not by blood, not by accident, but by choice. "You stay here as long as you need," he told Aaron. "No one will hurt you, I promise." She looked up at him with glassy eyes, and for the first time he saw trust. "I believe you." Outside, the storm passed. The wind quieted, and in the early morning light, the shed door now closed creaked just slightly in the breeze, like the past giving way to something new. The next morning brought an uneasy calm. The storm had washed the land clean, but it had also stirred up something deeper, something tangled in roots and memory. Sam stood at the kitchen window, mug in hand, staring out at the wet fields and long morning shadows. In the living room behind him, Aaron dozed lightly on the old couch, wrapped in flannel and clutching baby Caleb to her chest. He could still hear the occasional soft cough from her cracked lungs, and each one made his chest tighten. He'd stayed up most of the night watching her, the baby, the driveway running through the same impossible questions. Could Jake really be alive? Could his own brother, the boy who used to chase frogs and shoot? Cans off fence posts have become the kind of man who trafficked girls and abandoned his own child. A cold part of Sam had always wondered if Jake's death had been a little too convenient. They never found the body after that supposed car crash 2 years back. It's just a burned-out shell of a vehicle and a lot of assumptions. Jake had been in deep with loan sharks, owed money in 3 states, and had vanished right when people started looking for him. But no one imagined he could be capable of this. Sam set his mug down and moved to the table where Aaron's torn backpack sat. It was damp, half empty, stained. Inside were a few diapers, some powdered formula in a cracked Ziploc, and a worn photo, a grainy picture of her holding Caleb at what looked like a rundown motel, smiling through bruises. And behind them, blurry but unmistakable, stood Jake. Alive. Healthy. Leaning against a wall like a man in control. Sam felt the blood drain from his face. It was him. There was no denying it now. He took the photo out, tucked it into his jacket, and walked to the door. He had a plan to make. By noon, Erin was awake, her voice stronger. She told him everything, how Jake had taken her under the pretense of love, isolated her, convinced her that Sam was a threat, that the Walker name was cursed. She described the network Jake worked with. Men who ran horses and girls across state lines. Small-town deputies who looked the other way, and a ranch up in Montana where he kept the fresh ones until they were sold. Sam felt physically ill, but beneath the horror was something else: resolve. He was going to burn that whole network to the ground. But first, he needed help. He made calls. A friend in Amarillo who'd done some pie work, retired federal marshal up near Lubbock, who owed him a favor. Within 48 hours, they had confirmation. Jake was indeed alive, living under the name Jason Carr and operating out of a remote ranch in Big Timber, Montana. It was a fortress, fenced, patrolled, isolated, but it had a weak point, a supply route that came in once every 2 weeks, and the next delivery was due Friday. Sam paced the kitchen like a caged animal. Erin sat at the table, gently feeding Caleb. "You don't have to go," she said quietly. "Just getting us here." It was more than I ever thought anyone would do. Sam looked at her, eyes sharp but soft. I do have to go. He's my brother, my blood. It means I've got a responsibility to stop him, and to make sure he never touches another person again. Erin hesitated, then reached into her coat and pulled out a USB stick, shaking slightly. Everything I gathered while I was with him, videos, documents, lists, I copied it all before I ran. I didn't know where I'd end up, but I knew if I survived, I'd find someone who could do something with this. Sam took it like it was a grenade, then nodded. You just made sure we have a case. That night, Sam sat out on the porch with Caleb asleep in a sling against his chest. The stars were bright and usually so. He'd always liked the quiet of country nights, but tonight it felt heavier, more meaningful. Looked down at the child. In his arms, this boy who bore his brother's sin and his own eyes, and felt a fierce, protective love he hadn't known he was capable of. He wasn't this boy's father by blood, but in every way that mattered, he would be. He swore it by. Thursday, Sam was on the road, driving north with 2 allies and a growing storm of justice behind him. Erin stayed behind with a young widow Sam trusted like a sister, hidden in the hills, far from the eyes of those who might come looking. The drive to Montana was long, bleak and quiet, but inside, Sam was a furnace. When they arrived near Big Timber, they scoped the place for a full day. The ranch was more like a compound: cameras, dogs, guards, lights, but there was a blind spot at the back of the property where the fence had rotted through. Sam knew it because Jake always cut corners, always assumed he was the smartest man in the room. Friday came like a crack of thunder. The sun was barely up when they moved. Silencers, nerves of steel. The retired marshal went in first, disabling the outside cameras. Sam and his friend followed, slipping through the fence. Inside the barn, they found 2 girls, barely teenagers, locked. In a room like animals, they were weak, but alive. Get them out first, Sam ordered, voice low. Then he went looking for his brother. He found Jake in the main house, sprawled on a couch, counting cash and sipping bourbon. For a second it was like looking into a distorted mirror, his own face aged and twisted by greed, arrogance, and something darker. Well, I'll be damned, Jake said, smirking. I knew she'd crawl to you. Sam didn't smile. Should have stayed dead. Jake stood slowly, raising his hands mockingly. You came all this way for what? Some girl you never met. Some baby that ain't even yours. He's mine, Sam said fiercely. 'Cause I'm the one who'll raise him to be a better man than either of us. Jake scoffed. You think you're righteous? You're just like Dad, full of rules, full of pride. But you don't know what it's like to take what you want. It's the only way to live. Sam's jaw tightened. You're wrong. The only way to live is to protect the people who need it most. The moment flared like dry brush to fire. Jake lunged, pulling a pistol from behind the bar. Sam was faster. 2 shots rang out. One struck Jake in the shoulder. The other shattered a bottle. Jake fell to the floor, bleeding and screaming, cursing Sam with every ounce of venom he had left by the time the FBI dipped off by Sam's marshal friend with Erin's evidence in hand. The girls were safe. The network exposed. And Jake was in cuffs, spitting blood and fury. Sam watched them drive him away in a black SUV, surrounded by agents. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt tired, but something else, too free. When Sam returned to the ranch 3 days later, Erin was waiting on the porch, Caleb in her arms. She stood slowly, unsure. Sam said nothing, just walked up and gently took Caleb, holding him close. The boy laughed a full, rich sound. Erin smiled through tears. Did he? She asked. Sam nodded. He's going away for a long time. The others, they're safe. All of them. They stood there a while, watching the sun slip behind the hills. There was peace in the quiet. Weeks passed, then months. Not because she had nowhere else to go, but because something had changed. She'd found a family not in the way she expected, not through blood or obligation, but through kindness, decency, and a man who chose to stand between her and the storm. Sam became more than a rancher. He was a father now, protector, a man who had stared into the eyes of cruelty and chosen compassion instead. And Caleb, he grew stronger every day. His laugh echoed across the fields. His eyes sparkled like storms, but they were full of light. The past didn't define him. The love around him did. And on his first birthday, Aaron stood beside Sam in the backyard, the ranch lit with fairy lights and laughter. She whispered, "You saved us." Sam shook his head. "You saved me." What often looked a way, they had found each other, not by chance, but by the quiet courage of doing what was right, even when no one was watching.